Warriors Unite! Back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2 and the 1% Club. Hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Sunday afternoon. Hope you guys are conquesting yourselves, conquesting things around you, and under God's purposes. Self-control is the key, my friends, and not allowing temptation to take over. So hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are relaxing today in the word of the Lord, trying to kind of focus on getting better, becoming the best person you can become over and over again, and that's wonderful. So today we're going to talk about something. JTE Creates, Grand Wizard mentioned it, a couple of people too. We're going to talk about having intimacy without releasing. And so it's going to be kind of an interesting type of discussion. But let me do a couple of shout-outs first before we do that. Let's go ahead and Giodude. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Benspecial, 2 of them. I appreciate that, Benspecial. Hamilton, thank you, my friend. John Jennings, of course. Thank you. EA, always. Annie Lopez, thank you. Kunalsaiyan, thank you, my friend. Rene Garcia, thank you. Think for yourselves. Always a great idea. And OlaoluwaG, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that a great deal. So thank you guys for all those nice comments. I try to do at least 10 of them each time if I can. I may do more if we get more of them. But I appreciate all the comments and great things. And I do also want to address something that we talked about, I think, a couple of episodes ago, and that was edging. And I think certainly... obviously, you don't want to do anything. You don't really want to go ahead and you want to be in monk mode, so you're not really actually doing any of that at all. But temptation is going to affect you in some ways. And what we're trying to do, especially on this channel, is save as many people as possible. So at whatever point you're in, it's important to realize this is a process. This is a lifestyle. And I went through this for 47 years. I know that it's difficult to build that process to get to the point where you're actually stopping this. And I'm going to be 64 in June, and it was 47 years of my life that I basically went back and forth, and I could not stop. I could not build that process. So when you take it step by step, just like any addiction, it does take time. So though we know edging is not good for you, edging is a better option, obviously, than, just going full out, right? And trying to stop cold turkey. Because many people can't do that. And though we need to pray to the Lord, we need to be able to lean on Him, it is difficult for people to overcome that temptation. So any step in the right direction is there. Obviously, you don't want to release. That's the key to the whole thing. But, of course, what you really want to do is have monk mode. Now, that gets us into the topic we're talking about today. So, JTE and Grand Wizard talks about the fact that we're talking about not allowing yourself to release, even though you may be having intimate relationships with someone. Now, we talk about this, and you may say, well, this is kind of crazy, Vigor Warriors 2, why are you talking about this? Well, let's kind of examine the situation a little bit and take a step back. Now, we're talking about a situation in which you're trying to transmute this energy, keeping this energy for yourself, making yourself the best person possible. And so what you're going to do is you're going to use that energy. So you don't want to lose any of the energy at all. The only time you want to lose it, at least in my opinion, is when you're procreating. And you're procreating when you're trying to have a child. And other people who are with you, that person you're going to be with, is going to obviously, be the other part of the equation. And so they are going to be intimate with you. Now, in that situation, you may try many times, and you may have a child at one of those times you try. The key is going to be is you're still going to have intimacy. Now, in those cases, you're obviously going to release because you want to procreate and have a child with that person, that significant other person you're with. Now, times we're talking about is when you don't really want to procreate, but you still want to enjoy the intimacy. Now, this is not an easy thing, of course, but it is something that's doable. And why I say that is because there's lots of people who can refrain from releasing and basically still have intimacy with somebody. Now, the key is going to be, again, what kind of level of self-control do you have? So as we talk about this, it's important to realize that this is a process you're having. You're starting, we all start at different points. It's almost like if I'm teaching a class and I have people from all different backgrounds in the class. Some people may have a lot of experience with the subject. Some people don't have experience with the subject. And some people may be brand new to everything. So they are all going to start at different levels, almost like we're talking about with retention and the journey you're on. Each one of us is in a different journey. So I would not definitely recommend this, right, to people who are just starting the journey. A lot of the listeners we have, a lot of the viewers we have are people who are trying, like I did for 47 years, trying to overcome this temptation that they have and become a better person. So certainly from the face of it, this is not something that you want to do, because basically, it's not, the temptation to release is always going to be there. Now, if you're sitting there talking about multiple partners, of course, I would not do that. In my viewpoint, if you have that person that you're trying to be intimate with, and that's the person you're going to procreate with eventually anyway, that person is somebody who is going to be used to you, and you're going to be able to kind of deal with that situation. But of course, you don't necessarily want to release, right, unless you're going to procreate. So it all becomes a step-by-step process, in my book at least. That's how I was able to overcome this, or at least overcome to the point where I'm in more control of it. I mean, you never fully overcome it, because the evil one, the devil, is always around. They're always going to present situations, and you're always still growing under God. And so God is teaching you little by little things that are happening. So as you do this, you're going to learn little different things that are going to make it easier, more difficult. And so again, this is a step in the process. So when we're talking about not releasing when you're intimate, it is possible you can do that, but I would not recommend that until you are more advanced in your journey. And what I mean by that, and I think I'm on 1,600 days or something like 17, I think I just passed 1,700 days. And some people over 2, 3 years, 4 years, that's something you can try. And of course, if it doesn't work, well, then you go back and this is a lifestyle change. So you may, mistake, you release, but you still can go back to it. It's not the end of the world. But I think certainly someone who is in a beginning stages, or trying to rebound after they've, released, and now they're back to, trying to do it again and starting a new streak, those type of things, I would not recommend this. I would stay totally away from all that until you're able to get more of a handle on the situation and temptation. And it's not obviously that easy, but the key is going to be, again, to know what your purpose is. Why are you sitting there with this young woman, this lady? Why are you with this person? Is your long-term purpose going to have children and a family? Is that what you want to do? That's a different type of mentality than saying, okay, I'm just going to have a night of fun, or I'm just going to have, relax and enjoy myself with someone. Then you may think differently about the situation. It's all the context of a situation you're dealing with. And I think certainly, I recommend, obviously, the only time you're releasing is when you're procreating. So all these other times, it's a matter of how can you deal with that temptation. Certainly, I think for those who are in the beginning stages, like I was, I think holding hands and, kissing, to some extent is fine. And even, hugging is fine. But certainly, your lines of temptation, right? And obviously, if you get, aroused, then you're going to have to go ahead and kind of deal with that transmutation, right? So you got to be able to kind of convince yourself at some point that you're playing kind of a dangerous game here, especially if you're just starting out. Now, if you've got a long streak and you're used to doing this and you try it and you find some success, that's great, because people can do it. I've seen it done. People can do it. People can last a long time without releasing. But mentality-wise, it's a mentality you have to be able to do that. And that's why we say that when we talk about this, the key is going to be, what is your purpose in mind here? If you just want to go ahead and release, you're going to release anyway, whether it's a picture, a person you're with, or anything like that. But the bottom line, if you want to hold that energy inside and your mentality says, I am not going to release, well, then you're going to find ways to get out of situations or not to get into situations where the temptation is there to release. And that's where comes in this whole idea about what's the purpose of your plan with the young lady that evening. What do you plan to actually do? Are you going to go ahead and actually have intimacy to the point where you're thinking about having intercourse? Or are you basically going to go and say, okay, we're just going to have a nice dinner, time and movie, maybe what it might be, or whatever it might be, and a nice conversation, and that's the end of that situation. For young men, it's a lot more difficult, of course, because the hormones up, the testosterone is up, all those things make it difficult, especially if the young lady is an attractive young lady. So, and women struggle with this as well, but from the men's perspective, at least, this is a challenge. And so at some point, you're going to have to say, okay, what is the purpose we have here? Certainly things like, ending the date at a certain time, not staying out past midnight. Those type of things are always good suggestions. Not going to the bars, not going to places where people get together and drink, because a combination of drinking and, can lead to drugs, can lead to intercourse, all these type of things. And now you're in a situation when you're releasing again. So all these type of things are things you can think about when the purpose is. Now, once again, this goes back to the purpose of what you're trying to do. Why are you trying to, what is your long-term goal with this person? Now, it may just be to have a fun evening. That's great. But obviously, that's not going to include releasing your energy. Now, you may also decide, okay, this is a person I have as a partner long-term. And if we do this and it procreates, that's fine. If you end up having a child, that's great. But you can still try to learn how to control the behavior. And I think certainly as partners work together on this, you can do that. I mean, that's something that is not that difficult with people. But the key is going to be in your mind mentally, how can I stop myself? And I think you have to start thinking about those same things we talk about all the time and saying, okay, how do I look at women? I look at women, I don't look at women as objects, but I also don't get to the point where I'm going to release. I'm thinking in my mind, I am now in control, and I don't need necessarily to release. Not an easy thing, of course, but something that's doable. Again, I would not suggest that to people who are just starting in their journey. Those people who are more experienced, those people who are there longer and been around, I would say that's great. You can try that, but I would not do that if you're just kind of starting off, because you're trying to build a condition, a habit, a learned habit of not releasing. And as time goes on, that learned habit's going to get stronger and stronger. At some point, it may be different, especially with the person who you're in love with, someone that you want to spend, a long time with. That may be a decision you want to make. And certainly I'm not in a position to judge any of that. I think certainly the key is going to be to try to keep your energy as long as possible. And so certainly the overall answer to people, great question from JTE Creates and Grand Wizard and a lot of other people, is that no, I would not necessarily recommend that for people who are starting on their streaks. But for those experienced people who have gone through a long period of time without releasing and have built up the transmutation so they know how to transmute that, and they can still get, excited, but they can control that, then I would say that that's a possibility, especially with the person that you're with, that you're the person you're not having multiple partners. Multiple partners make it a lot more difficult. I would not recommend multiple partners. I wouldn't recommend it in any way, but certainly not in this situation when you're trying to hold on to your energy as much as possible. So I hope this helps, guys. Thank you, guys. Once again, JTE Creates and Grand Wizard and other people who've kind of commented on this idea. Certainly, I try to go back and tackle different topics again. I think my next one on here is actually smoking and semen retention. A home buddy asked that question, so maybe we'll do that in a couple days. All right, my friends, obviously I'm still working on getting a computer, kind of working on some other things to try to improve. I think this summer I hopefully have a little more time to kind of go back and work on the channel and help you guys, give you guys more information. And thank you guys for donations, comments, feedback. I appreciate that. I think it's an interesting type of thing when you look at people, and some people are just not understanding. They don't care about this at all, and that's fine. I appreciate those comments as well. Some people don't like this at all. They don't think it's really, they think it's kind of a myth and nothing to it, and that's great. That's up to them. But I would just ask you guys, for those who don't believe and are listening, go ahead and try this and see the market difference. You know, I'm 60, almost gonna be 64 years old, and I feel like I'm 25 years old. And I felt like that for a while, ever since I started the monk mode. And I think it's just wonderful. So I think there's a lot of benefits. It's a great superpower that you have, and you can kind of almost accomplish anything. And no matter what your age is not a relevant thing when it comes to something like this. And I think you can see that in the results. So anyway, guys, thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the rest of your Sunday. Please be in the Word, meditate, talk with your Creator. This is the time to do that before next week starts. And I hope you guys continue battling on as well. So 2 things I always leave you guys with, as I always do. 1, every day is a new day to a great warrior. You guys are all great warriors, and I appreciate you, every one of you guys, for all the comments and things you did. And number 2, guys, we always have to continue to fight this, you know what, because devil is always on the other side. And no matter if you're down, up, the devil's going to find a way to get involved. So we got to continue to keep our shield on, our breastplate, our helmet, because we've got to continue to battle on! God bless you guys. Have a great rest of the evening.